Another question from Maria. How do you recognize a good hypnotic subject? Well, everybody who goes into your practice, walks into your practice, has to be a hypnotic subject, because if they've come here for hypnotherapy, you're going to be using hypnosis with them, of course, hopefully. And how do you recognize if they're good? Well, okay, maybe the question should be, how do you recognize who's more receptive rather than they are good at hypnosis? Receptive, because it's about the degree of receptivity that you're utilizing. Some people are highly receptive to trance and hypnosis, that they can go in very deeply and very easily. Some people are not as receptive, but they're able to let their mind wander and go somewhere else, do a bit of daydreaming while you're nattering away in the background to their unconscious mind. So it's about the degree of receptivity, if you like, that we're looking for. So to come back to that question, how do you recognize these people? Well, okay, you have to think of the minimal cues of trance. When somebody goes into hypnosis, what changes happen to them? Okay, well, let's just make a little short list, okay? Pupil dilation, pupils expand, dilation, okay? Fixed stare quite often, no blinking at all, or more rapid blinking, or a slowing down of the blink reflex. Okay. Change of muscle tone around the eyes because their pupils are dilating, leading to then a relaxation in the jaw, in the face. So muscle tone is changing. Okay. Swallowing, a lack of swallow reflex. They're not swallowing as frequently as they would normally. Okay. Breathing, slowing down, respiration, slowing down, not as deep, so usually a little bit more shallow. Sometimes they'll take a deeper breath just to catch up, if you like, but it's more shallow breathing and a slowing down of the breathing. Okay. And a general immobility in the body, not fidgeting much. So think about all of these. Okay. They're the minimal cues of trance that we recognize. So in everyday conversation, how many of those would you see? Well, it depends on their receptivity to what you're saying or doing. So let's just create an imaginary scenario, okay? Here you are, you've got 4 people, you're talking to some friends, for example. Assuming the lighting is all the same for all of you, because you're going to be comparing, each person, the lighting's the same. And you're leaning in yourself. You're telling a story. Maybe your voice comes down a little bit because you have something very interesting to share. Okay, so your friends start to lean in a little bit as well. Some will lean in, not further than others. Others will just stay where they are. Okay, so first indication, the person who is like, if you like, all ears to what you're saying, they're leaning forward. It's the first signal they're going to be a better hypnotic subject than the others, number one, because they're showing you this response attentiveness, we call it. Okay. Number 2, as you talk, you'll see the changes with the eyes and the blinking. The pupils will usually dilate. This is because they're now visualizing what you're saying. So if you're telling a story, they're visualizing it. They may be looking at you or looking through you or looking at other people, but they're not actually seeing you. They're actually seeing the internal images, and their pupils are dilating because they're not having to focus externally on something. Okay, the next thing that could happen is that the swallowing changes. They don't swallow because they're suspended, so fascinated in the story. Okay, and then the breathing will have slowed down. They're not even aware of their breathing. You know what a breathtaking view is? A breathtaking view is that time when you suddenly see something that's so breathtaking, the view is so beautiful, that you stop breathing. It's a similar state. You literally stop breathing and you have to take an extra breath, a breathtaking view. Wow, in order to take it in, because you've actually stopped breathing. That's why it's called a breathtaking view. It's a little bit similar. Okay, so they're breathing more shallow, and they might have to go, wow, that's an amazing story. Same kind of context. So you've got this context, you've created it, and they're leaning forward slightly. There's an immobility in the body. Okay, these are the signs of a good hypnotic subject. And students, I do a lot of teaching and lecturing and conferences and things. And my students used to say, how do you, if I get a volunteer from the group, let's say you've got 100 people, how do you pick out a volunteer from the group? Now, a volunteer is someone who volunteers, right? Well, I will usually ask for volunteers because, I don't know what problems people have. And so I will ask for volunteers, but usually there's a half a dozen hands go up. How do I know which one to pick? I don't know what their problem is, and I don't necessarily want them to all share what their problem is in front of the audience. So how do I know which one to pick? Well, when I'm teaching, I'm scanning all the time. I'm looking, and it's really, really easy to identify those people in a group who are good hypnotic subjects because they will be demonstrating everything I've just said. Okay. So I could, if I wanted to actually say, I want you, I could pick out those people very easily. And that just comes through, practice and experience of watching lots of people slumped in chairs and going into hypnosis. Okay. So it's not a difficult thing to do once you're familiar with it. So I could pick them out. So if somebody puts their hand up and they're one of those volunteers, okay, that'll be, they're one of those people. I will say, okay, you need to come up here. And already I know they're actually already in trance. So there won't really be any failure with the demonstration. So it's like a little safety net that I might use. So that's basically how I pick out good hypnotic subjects to work with in that context. But remember, when we work in a private practice, we have to work with every single person that walks in the door.